These are some of the worst things about South Carolina that no one tells you. Hey there, I'm Lindsey Vance, realtor with the Living in South Carolina team at Real Broker. If you ever have questions or you're considering a move to the state, that's what we're here for. Okay, so South Carolina has been one of the most popular places people are moving to, and it continues to top the charts. But what about the reasons people don't like living here, and even enough to maybe move out of South Carolina? Let's check it out. First up is to have an HOA or to not have an HOA. Homeowner associations have become much more common throughout the state because there's so much new construction happening. And especially if you're looking for a neighborhood with 55 and up amenities or something age restrictive, some of those covenants and restrictions for the homeowner association might be pretty extensive. So no matter if you're planning to live in a neighborhood or not, don't assume that they don't have an HOA. Homeowner associations can be a good thing or a bad thing. I know some people say they don't want to be told what they can or can't do with their property, and that's understandable. But keep in mind, the HOA and those restrictive covenants keeps protection on your property and your property value. South Carolina also has a lot of rural properties. This means you might not be in a homeowners association necessarily, but you may have restrictive covenants on the property. One way I find this out for clients when we're looking at properties and making sure there are or are not any restrictive covenants is to look up the deed for the property. It will be noted right in the deed if it has that in place or not. Next up, we're talking about South Carolina's alcohol laws, or as some people call it, liquor laws. But we're talking about everything from beer, wine, and liquor. Did you know that you cannot buy all three of those things in the same store? If it happens to be under the same roof, they're gonna be in two different sections of the store that are closed off from one another. You can buy beer in one side and wine and liquor in the other. Another thing to keep in mind is those liquor stores close at 7 p.m. and they're only open Monday through Saturday. Nothing on Sundays, but hang on, that might be changing. If you really want to get alcohol on Sundays, in most cases, you'll need to be within city limits of a specific town, but no liquor stores on Sundays. And this began because Sundays were viewed as a day of rest, and that means the employees at the liquor stores as well. But let's get real, it's 2024 and most people are not working that typical Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job. South Carolina recently approved a bill that allows liquor stores to be open on Sundays only if their local government allows it. This means if a county or city council agrees to bring that idea to the table for public vote and it gets majority approval, that liquor stores could be open on Sundays from 1 to 5 p.m. This would be a game changer, for some people at least. Moving on to traffic and bad drivers. For real though, South Carolina is ranked the 8th state with the most number of incidents per driver. And this means basic traffic violations, DUIs, and big car accidents. Keep in mind, there are a lot of visitors coming to South Carolina, not just the people that are living here. And a lot of the time, they don't know where they're going. Also, you can actually get fined for driving too slow in South Carolina on the interstate. But now opposite of that, South Carolina, among some other states, are actually trying to slow down the speed limit on highways and interstates to fill that gap and try to avoid some of these accidents. There is approximately $20 billion spent annually by tourists visiting South Carolina. That is absolutely mind-blowing. Also, I grew up in a beach and tourist area, and I know what it's like when it comes to that traffic. Some things like golf carts or even the bridges getting to and from the islands. Those cause a little bit of traffic themselves. One more unique thing to keep in mind with traffic in South Carolina, specifically where I'm located in Aiken, is horse traffic. That's right, our horses here have the right of way. Next up, we're talking about the slow pace of life. We're in the South after all. We talk slow, we move slow, we drive slow. What is the hurry? It will definitely test your patience, that's for sure. And here's a fun fact. South Carolina is the second slowest talking state in the US. Number 1 is Louisiana. I could have guessed that one. It's really just a way of life here. That Southern hospitality, you'll have to get used to it. It's more than just being friendly. It's taking your time and enjoying life. You could be at the grocery store or in line at the coffee shop, and I guarantee someone's gonna ask how the kids are, how your parents are, even the dog. And finally, taxes. This is something no one wants to talk about, but at the same time, everyone wants to talk about it. So let's dive into South Carolina's taxes in regards to real estate, personal property, income, and sales tax. Overall, the cost of living in South Carolina is lower than the national average, and real estate taxes have a big play in that. However, there is a downfall in real estate taxes if you don't claim it as your primary residence. A non-primary residence tax rate is almost triple what your normal bill would be. That means if you don't claim the property as your primary residence, you could be taxed at the ratio of 6%. I'll drop the formula for taxes in South Carolina here on the screen and in the description. Of course, the millage rate depends on the local government of where those taxes are assessed. Keep in mind, anytime you buy a new property in South Carolina, you must reapply for this primary residence tax at that 4% ratio. This could mean a huge difference. And I'll tell you from experience, at the closing table with every client, I remind them about applying for this lower tax rate. And when I bought a property, I forgot to do it. But no worries, when I got that tax bill that was almost tripled, I was able to get everything readjusted and prove that this was my primary residence. I'll never do that again, but do as I say, not as I do. In order to apply for that lower tax rate, the county is going to want 2 things: your driver's license and your vehicle registration, both updated with your new address on it. Then you can apply and get approved for the lower tax rate. In some states, when you have that lower tax rate, some people call it the homestead tax exemption, but that is not the case in South Carolina. The homestead tax exemption is actually for people that would qualify for it if you are of the age of 65 or older, you are permanently and completely disabled, or you are completely blind. You must apply for these exemptions after you've been living in South Carolina for at least 1 year. The benefit of this exemption is that the first $50,000 of your fair market value is taken off the top, and then you get your tax bill. Now, this one is not very fun to talk about because it's pretty high compared to other states. South Carolina has a progressive income tax. This means that the rates are high because the legislature has chosen to calculate income taxes by using our federal taxable income rather than our total income or even our gross federal income as the starting point. Another downfall of our taxes in South Carolina is personal property tax. Yep, you're going to be paying taxes on your vehicle or even your RV, your boat, motorcycle, or an airplane. Those property taxes need to be paid every single year. And your vehicle registration is going to be renewed every 2 years. This can be a little bit confusing and can get expensive for some people. Now for our last section of taxes is sales tax. South Carolina has a statewide tax of 6%, and generally all retail is subject to this tax. In addition to this, there can be anywhere from 1 to 4% tax added on from local municipalities. This is because they need to support capital improvements, schools, and tourism. If you eat out at a restaurant, there is additional add-ons. For example, in Charleston, there's a 2% hospitality tax, which totals 11%. Then a liquor tax at 5%, So a good night out in Charleston could cost you up to 16% in sales tax. That is mind-blowing. Before we finish up, did you know that in 2023, South Carolina was the fastest growing state in the US in regards to people moving within the country itself? Now, some people might look at this as a bad thing, that we are becoming overpopulated, but that's really not the case for South Carolina, because without that growth, our population would drastically decline because we have a negative birth rate. That is so surprising, but it also makes sense because we are a big retirement destination. If this video was helpful, tell me in the comments. And of course, if you have any questions, reach out to our team. We love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and keep up to date with our other videos. I'm Lindsey Vance and look forward to seeing you next time on Living in South Carolina.